authority. This is The David Webb Show.
Joining me now, Jessica Millan Patterson, first woman and Latino to serve as state party chair in California in Republican districts. Yes, they still exist in California. We've added congressional seats. Fundraising has increased and registration has increased. So let's dive right into the numbers. Chairwoman Patterson, let's talk those numbers. Fundraising, increased registration, and where in California is this more prevalent?
Well, it's really exciting, and thanks for having me on, David. It's always great to be with you and your listeners. We've had a huge focus. When I first took over in February of 2019, it was a very dark time for California Republicans. We had lost half of our congressional delegation. Party preference, we're an organized party. There were more people choosing that than choosing to be Republicans. Since then, we've registered over 700,000 new Republicans here in California. But what's most interesting is what's taken place since October of last year. Since October of last year, California Republicans have out-registered the Democrats. We've increased by about 160,000 new registrations. In that same time period, Democrats have lost 106,000 registrations. Declined estates or no party preference have lost 115,000 registrations. We have picked up registration in every single congressional district in our state. We have picked up registration in every assembly district, Senate district, and every single county. We have put a major focus on this. And so when we're winning a Democrat registration advantage seat like David Valadao's by 17 and a half points, in 2022, I feel really good about it improving by 2 points for 2024.
Okay, and that's great to hear. Are there areas and it's California, so it's a big state, and I know it's a big question, but are there areas where you did not expect an increase, and is there, call it a logic and reasoning behind that increase?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's been a huge impact for us is amongst Latino voters. And the investment that the National Party has put into California when it comes to our community engagement centers has been absolutely critical. This is something that I believe is the road back to sanity here in California. When we are showing up in communities that have been neglected by our party over the years, this is something that is going to be critical, not just to winning these congressional districts. David, we picked up 5 House seats in the last 2 cycles, and we are the reason for the House majority being owned by Republicans right now. And we're going to go on the offense. We're going to go protect those seats, plus we're going to go on the offense in 3 more. We could not do that if we were not showing up in these communities and building out, talking about the values that we share. Democrats have done a very good job of that over the last decade. And Republicans needed to show up, and we needed to talk about every single one of those milestones that their lives have been affected by. Do you have a better way of life right now when it comes to your job? Do you feel safer in your streets? Are your children getting a better education so that they can have a better life than you have? All of these things are incredibly important to these minority communities throughout our state, and that's why we're able to be competitive in more places.
It's great to see the trends improving, especially in minority registrations. But, for the time being, the majority is a white majority in California, especially when you break it out by propensity, high propensity voters, and even, shall we say, just older voters in general. So what are those trends like? Because those are the votes that are not guaranteed, but more likely to be engaged.
You're absolutely right. And that's why, some of the seats, particularly in Southern California, in the coastal seats, our registration is much better. The open Katie Porter seat, for example, where we have a fantastic candidate in Scott Baugh. This is a seat that the registration is only about a point Democrat advantage. When you compare that to a seat that's in the Inland Empire or in the Central Valley, those inland seats. We're able to rely on inland Democrats and Valley Democrats more than coastal Republican women. So what our job is to make sure that we find the right candidate in each one of those seats. So having someone like former Assembly Republican leader Scott Baugh is a perfect fit for that coastal district. Just south of there in the Josh Harder seat, we have a fantastic candidate in Matt Gunderson, and he's a businessman and is very, very focused on the community. So making sure you have the right candidates in those districts where the registration may not look as daunting as a D plus 15.5 Democrat registration advantage, but the type of people that you are reaching out to and engaging with is different. And you have to be able to push all of those voters out if you want to win.
Let's walk through some of the numbers, and I'll base this on the January 5th, 2024 report on voter registration in California. This is from the Secretary of State's website. Eligible voters in California, 26,649,323. Registered voters, 22,077,412. Democrat, Republican, and no party preference. And it goes a little bit to your point earlier. 10,323,214 Democrats, 46.76%, for those interested in the percentages. 5,332,858 Republicans, that's 24.16%. No party preference is what I want to go to here. You have 4,845,113. That represents 21.95%. That has no party preference, and there's 1.5 million plus other. So where are Republicans focusing the efforts? Because in just straight registration, you're still down basically 2-1.
Yeah, and so what we're seeing on the movement of that, we are seeing some movement from the no party preference. We did a reclamation program down in Orange County. It's very specific, where we were finding people who were previously Republicans and bringing them back to the party, talking about why they should be Republican. Having someone like President Trump at the top of the ticket in our primary. We have a closed presidential primary here. That was a big focus for us for moving people over. Also, with younger voters, this is a place where we were actually surprised to see people moving over from the moving or choosing to be Republicans versus choosing for the first time to be Democrats. So making sure that we were engaged on not just college campuses, but high school campuses as well, working very hard with our internship programs all over the state. This is grassroots activism. This is where we needed to focus. We needed to show up. We needed to be engaged. And then, of course, what we're doing on the Latino vote and having our community centers. It's not the typical campaign headquarters. We're not just launching precinct walks and doing phone banks. We do that too. But for example, in Michelle Park Steele's district, our Little Saigon Engagement Center, we have a Tai Chi class on Friday nights. We have a Vietnamese dance team that practices there on Saturday. So we're truly being a part of the community, and people can see we're the Republican Party and we're here to help.
My guest, Jessica Millan Patterson, California GOP chair. Look, this is a by-the-numbers time. This is a by-the-numbers election because you win with those numbers. Jessica, boots on the ground. Is the party, especially in areas where Republicans can, or at least have a good chance of increasing a state representative, a state Senate seat, maybe even a municipal seat, hopefully some congressional, in those areas, is the party equipped and ready, and not just to work the elections, but before they get there to activate those voters?
Oh, absolutely. And, a big part of that is what we're doing on the candidate recruitment side, because you're absolutely right. It can't just be a top-down approach. It can't just be, we're going to run statewide. We need to make sure that we're showing up in every single one of these small elections, for city councils, for water boards, for school boards, county supervisors. And so we actually have a candidate recruitment and training program called California Trailblazers. And this is a phenomenal program that in the last cycle, we recruited over 1,500 candidates to run all over our state. We've trained over 550 this cycle already. We've done about 12 different boot camps all around our state. and online. We want to make sure that candidates who have never thought about running for office, and I'm sure you're seeing this all over the country, David, where they want to get involved. They are being called, whether it's in our school districts or in their city councils. They understand that the government that's going to affect them the most is the one that is closest to them. But it also helps us develop the bench. So when we're looking for those legislative candidates, we have people that are already battle tested. When we're looking for a congressional candidate, we have people that have already been through it. So we teach them everything from filing for office to communications training to fundraising, putting together a political plan. And then the other key part is building out our grassroots. When we finished up the 2020 election cycle, we had about 42,000 boots on the ground, volunteers that were out there knocking on doors, making phone calls, doing the peer-to-peer texting, and then especially our election integrity program, which we didn't start after 2020. We were heavily engaged in 2020. And so having those numbers increased to over 74,000 volunteers now going into the 2024 election cycle, we feel very good not only about the work that we're doing to engage voters and turning them out, but the enthusiasm that we see from everyday Californians.
My guest, Jessica Millan Patterson, California GOP chair. We just ran through a lot of numbers. I hope people are paying very close attention. There's possibilities of pickups. It starts, yes, at the local level, and we'll see. It's going to take years. That $100 billion surplus wasn't real. It's a hole that's bigger than the $28 billion in unfunded liabilities long term. California has a long way to go, but these numbers, the trends sound good. I'll leave it at that. I hope it continues to grow.
Absolutely. And it's a good reason to keep an eye on California with everything that's happening on the national level. They're looking at 2 Californians that could possibly replace President Biden on the ticket. And, even Californians are getting fed up with Gavin Newsom and Kamala Harris.
Well said. Thank you, Jessica.